Welcome to Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. And you know what? We did a trailer that some people might have already heard, but this is the real first episode of MacStories Unwind, our brand new show that covers everything we're doing at MacStories and some more for the weekend.
Yes, first episode of a new show. So this is going to be fun. We've been thinking about this format for a while. And so if you're a new listener, welcome. What you will find in this podcast is a weekly recap of everything we do at MacStories, which is not just a website anymore, because we have AppStories, which is our other podcast. We have Club MacStories, where we share exclusive content with Club MacStories members on a weekly basis. And we thought, you know, now that we have all these different properties, I know that it sounds so fancy to say properties, but it is what it is. We thought there could be a place for a kind of short form guide to everything we do, to publish every Friday. Because, you know, maybe you don't have the time to check out a website and a newsletter and another podcast during the week. And maybe you just want to have an outline of the things that you missed. And maybe you just want to hear us elaborate on the things we covered. Share some additional thoughts on the articles that we published and the things we talked about on AppStories. And this is what Unwind will be. And in the final section of Unwind, because it's right there in the title, we will also share something, a media recommendation, could be a book, could be a game, could be a TV show, music, movies, whatever, to help you unwind over the weekend, to help you relax and have fun, especially now that we could all use some distractions given what is going on in the world at the moment. So we just thought a weekly review of everything that we do at MacStories and more, plus some media recommendations for our listeners to relax and enjoy the weekend and just unwind for a couple of days before it's Monday again.
Yeah, the unwind part of this, I think, is kind of fun because it's something that you and I do all the time. I mean, we're always recommending albums and video games and movies and stuff to each other. And we thought, why not share this with everybody and give everybody a little something extra to check out over the weekend? And, you know, this isn't going to be just headlines. It is, as Federico said, going to be a little more of our thoughts on what's going on. But we'll, of course, have detailed show notes. So if you're using this to just kind of catch up on the week, it's really easy to pick and choose the things that you're most interested in and read more on the website or go check out AppStories or whatever it happens to be. So with that, why don't we get started? Federico, what happened on MacStories this week?
So the highlight, I guess, is the big update that Ulysses, the popular text editor, received on iOS and iPadOS, especially on iPadOS, I would say. Ulysses version 19 is a major update to the app, and it introduces a deep trackpad and pointer integration. So like other updates that we've seen recently, the Ulysses developers were able to integrate with the new pointer APIs in iPadOS 13.4 to allow you to not only interact with visual elements in the app like buttons and toolbar icons, but also to take advantage of swipe gestures, for example, to navigate between documents in the app and to open and close the sidebar and all that kind of stuff. In addition, you can also now share backups. You can export your local Ulysses backups via the share sheet. It's a proprietary format, so you will not be able to take advantage of the backup functionality to move your data between, say, Ulysses and Bear or Ulysses and IA Writer. But it's still, I believe, a good thing to have as an option to export a backup file, especially if you want to do something like send it to another copy of Ulysses on your Mac or your iPhone, for example. And lastly, and this is kind of a big deal for us because we at MacStories, we each of us, we have different preferences in terms of the text editors that we like to use. But the articles that we collaborate on, and especially the documents that make up the MacStories Weekly newsletter every week, they are stored in a single common shared space, and that is a GitHub repository that we access via working copy on iOS and iPadOS. And now Ulysses 19 supports files bookmarks, which is a technology of iOS and iPadOS that I covered on MacStories many times before. Ulysses 19 supports file bookmarks, and it lets you open external folders in the app That means that you can now open any folder from iCloud Drive or a third-party document provider, such as Working Copy, for example, and edit those documents contained in that folder in place inside Ulysses without creating a duplicate copy, without having to do, import, edit, and share again. You just open them in place, you edit them, and the edited file is saved back to its original location. And I know that Ryan, for example, at MacStories, has already been experimenting with external folders to open a folder from Working Copy inside Ulysses, make changes from Ulysses, and have those changes saved back to Working Copy.
Yeah, this is a really big addition, and I think it's fantastic. I think the other thing worth noting too, since Ryan wrote this this article earlier in the week, is that the folks at Ulysses have opened up a beta for version 20 already. So there's going to be a very big public beta because they've got some very big features coming up. They have not said a lot about what exactly that is. There's some changes coming to navigation. There's some changes coming to attachments, the way they're handled, that sort of thing. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a really interesting summer if you're using that text editor or just want to check it out for the first time. I'm definitely downloading that beta and starting to kick the tires a little bit in the next few days.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what's new in Ulysses 20. They mentioned this dashboard view in the sidebar for attachments and material sheets. So I'm very curious to check that out. John, can you tell me about Do?
Yeah, Do is an app that has been on the App Store for a really long time. I think in fact, it goes so far back. I found your first story about it, Federico, and I believe it was it was in
very bad English.
Yeah,
very bad English.
I wasn't going to say that. I swear it was in like September 2010, I think. So it was.
Very bad English.
It was MacStories was just over a year old at the time. And that was, I believe, the very first version of Do, which at the time was only on the iPhone. And Do is a reminder app and a timer app, but it's a little different. It's kind of like timers and reminders on steroids, because if you have something that you absolutely can't miss that you need to know about, it will relentlessly remind you that you haven't done something until you get it done. Because now it's all adjustable. You can set it however you want, but if you want, you can have it just continually send you push notifications and make noise until you actually complete the task.
Yeah, it's like my mom when I was a kid, basically.
Yes, it's exactly like that. So what's great about it, I think, is that I use it for just kind of those little things in life, like maybe you throw in a load of laundry and I don't know about you, but I always forget that I put in the laundry, and then it sits finished in the washing machine for hours before I pull it out. So I'll set a Do reminder to just go do that in an hour when it's finished. So it's little things like that to me don't really fit super well in a traditional task manager, though you can use it for that kind of thing too. But what's neat about the update that we got this week, I mean, I'll get to the changes and cut to the chase, is that we got 2 new shortcut actions. And these are modern shortcut actions with parameters. We got new reminder and new repeating reminder. So what this does, I mean, if you've already been using Do, you know that in the past, it's already had, some Ask Siri type of integrations with shortcuts in the past. But with parameters, you can now set the title and the time and date programmatically within shortcuts, which opens up a lot more possibilities. So this can be, one thing that I thought about, for instance, is I could set it up so that when I upload a story to our WordPress in the administration panel, once it's uploaded, I could have Do prompt me to set a timer to, hit the publish button when an embargo is up on a review, for example. So there's a lot of things like that you can do to integrate it with other aspects of what you do in shortcuts, and I'm really looking forward to digging into it. I've only used it for a few days so far, but really happy with the changes that have been made.
Yeah, very nice. It's nice to have Do out again with another feature update. The developers have kept working on Do with bug fixes and other kinds of improvements, but it's always nice to have new features as well. Todoist also came out with a relatively major update. They have this new upcoming view that is available across platforms and is essentially a new version of what used to be called in Todoist the next 7 days view. So the upcoming view, at least to me, it reminds me in a way of the OmniFocus forecast view. You have this row of, the next few days, and you can check out all of your upcoming tasks. And it's sort of like if you've seen the scheduled view in Reminders or the upcoming view in Things or the forecast in OmniFocus, it looks very similar. It's just nice to have, in Todoist. It's much more extensive than the next 7 days view. It integrates with the calendar. It lets you easily jump between days, so you can easily reschedule and move tasks around. It also shows you days that have not any tasks assigned to them. So it's very easy to tell at a glance, oh, I have nothing else going on this day. Maybe I can, shuffle a couple of tasks around and move them to this day. So just very nice to have. And Todoist looks, it keeps looking very nice to me. Personally, I'm not a fan of the fact that because it's rooted in the web primarily. Todoist is a web service first and foremost.
Right.
And it's that kind of app that tends to be a little slower in adopting new native iOS and iPadOS APIs. For example, Todoist, I don't believe it supports multi-window on iPad yet, and it doesn't integrate with the pointer yet. Eventually, I'm sure it will get those features, but because the developers need to prioritize the web aspect first, because it's a product that is available on all platforms, from iOS to Windows and Android and, I don't know, maybe even Linux. I have no idea, but it's possible. So those native functionalities that are exclusive to the Apple platforms, they tend to come a little later. So it looks very nice. The design is super polished. So if you're a Todoist user, go check out the upcoming view.
Yeah, it's a really nice update. I wanted to mention too, really quickly, a link post that we did this week because we got iOS and iPad OS 13.5 in beta. And it came out first as a developer beta, but the public beta is out now too. And included in this are the tools that Apple and Google had announced that they will use for exposure notification tools for COVID-19. There's also a couple of feature enhancements here. There's Face ID skipping, so that if you're wearing a face mask out in public and you hold up your phone to do Face ID, it skips a lot faster to your passcode so that you don't have to kind of wait for it to fail. I haven't tried it out yet, but it looks like a really nice thing given that people are largely wearing masks now when they go out. And on top of that, there's been a tweak to group FaceTime chats, the video chats, that where if you have a really big video chat, people's heads tend to kind of zoom in and out very quickly in the app, and it's really disturbing if you use it a lot. And so in the new one, you can kind of reduce that, so it's not as big a deal.
Yeah, I have the beta on my phone, and the Face ID, it is indeed faster. If you want to try this, you don't have to wear a mask. Just hold your hand in front of your mouth, for example, and you will see that Face ID will fail, but it'll go to the passcode screen immediately instead of, before it used to keep trying to authenticate you. Now, if it fails, it goes straight to the passcode screen. And you know what? I've seen people refer to the 13.5 as the COVID-19 update. And sure enough, these are all fixes that are a result of the unfortunate situation that we're in. So, But it's nice to see Apple react to that with some software fixes. So it's a very, very welcome set of improvements, I think.
Absolutely. And there's a new developer beta of Xcode as well. So I'm going to move on to AppStories, and we had AppStories 160 this week, which is, that number's getting pretty big, Federico.
I know, don't mention it. It makes me feel old.
I know, I was going to say, it means we're getting older.
But we do need to mention it because we do need to tell people the episode numbers.
So. We do. So in AppStories 160, we had an episode called Utility Apps Revisited, and we had a grab bag of utilities that we raised with people. And, I had some the ones that I had in the list were Pixo and Pixelmator and the Inspect browser and screens. And, Pixelmator just got a really big update recently on iOS. This is not Pixelmator Photo, which is on the iPad. This is the original Pixelmator, which allows you to do compositing of images. Really like the update. It allows you to use the document browser now. Pixo I use a lot for screenshots and stitching them together when I have multiple screenshots that need to be combined into a single image. Inspect browser is a way to kind of mimic the inspect element feature and other developer tools that are baked into Safari on the Mac, but on iOS. I don't use that app a lot, but when I do need to dig into the code of a page, it's a great way to do it. And then screens. I mean, that's how I access my Mac when I'm being lazy and sitting on the couch. And it's an app that I've used absolutely forever. I can use it on my network or with the help of a little helper app that they publish when I'm away from home as well, at a coffee shop if I ever go back to one of those to do my work. You had some good utilities this week too.
Yeah, I covered broadcasts, Tot, A Shell, and Charcoal. They are quite the collection of utilities. Tot is the popular Scratchpad app by the Icon Factory, which I reviewed on MacStories a couple of months ago. And I still use a lot. It's in my dock, even on the iPhone. It's in my dock on the iPad. I use it all the time to just throw random bits of plain text in it and sync them across platforms. Charcoal is an excellent drawing utility for the iPad that takes advantage of PencilKit, the API for pencil integration that is available on the iPad. It's a very, very simple blank page with some tools based on the Apple Pencil and a color palette. It's super easy if you just want to draw without the complication, without the additional complexity, I guess, of something like Procreate, for example. It's a very good utility. A Shell is a terminal for your iPad. Obviously, due to platform limitations, it's sandboxed. It cannot do all the things that you can do with a terminal on your Mac, but it still, it still lets you run Python scripts and shell scripts and Lua scripts even. You can do web requests. You can even install, for example, YouTube DL and download videos from YouTube using the popular download package. So very well done. And Broadcasts is the new internet radio app by Steve Troughton-Smith, which I just love. It's the kind of utility that is modern, works on all platforms. I believe, in addition to the iPhone, iPad, and Mac and CarPlay, it's also coming to the Watch and the Apple TV. Steve has this massive update that introduces 2 more platforms, in addition to moving to CloudKit Sync and a bunch of other additions. Also, Shortcuts integration is coming. Spotlight integration is coming. Steve is he's made the perfect example of a utility that becomes so much more powerful by simply taking advantage of all the modern technologies that the system gives you for free, right? It's an app that it doesn't have a lot of... There are internet radio apps on the App Store that have more features, but none of them, I think, is just as deeply integrated with the system as Broadcasts. So at the moment that we're recording this, version 1.3 is not on the App Store yet, but definitely keep an eye on the App Store for the next major update to Broadcasts, which I rediscovered Italian radio because of the lockdown, John, and I just love listening, using Broadcasts on my phone and the iPad.
Yeah, it's a really great app, and I've been following Steve Troughton-Smith on Twitter and watching him continue to develop it, and it's really neat what he's done with this app. And you're right, it's absolutely one of the great examples of integration with the native platforms. So, Federico, this week on the club, we had one of those great big club weeks where not only did we have an issue of MacStories Weekly, but we also sent out the monthly log, because club members at MacStories get 2 things. They get a weekly newsletter from us, and then they also get one once a month. And so every month, there's at least 1 week where we do 2 newsletters. And this week was the week to send out the April monthly log. And we had stories from Stephen Hackett. He has taken his extraordinarily huge Apple history collection and moved it into DEVONthink.
Yeah.
And DEVONthink's a great app. It's available both on the Mac and on iOS. And it's a database app, for lack of a better description. You can throw just about any kind of file or text or all sorts of things at it, and it does a great job of indexing it and making it super searchable, which is perfect for something like Steven's Apple history collection, because he has thousands and thousands of articles and images and movies and all kinds of things in there. And so he describes a little bit about that. Ryan did a story about that's I guess a takeoff on what you guys did on Adapt this week, the Relay FM podcast about iPads, because he has both iPad Pro keyboards.
He has everything. He bought everything.
And so he's been on a bit of a journey over the last, I don't know what it's been, a week or so. And he explains how that went, and I won't spoil it, but if you're a member of the club, check that out. And I talked about external displays. I mean, I've got my cursor support now. I've got my great Magic keyboard for my iPad Pro, and now I feel like the last piece is external displays, and I talk a little bit about what I'd like to see and how that might all work. It was a fun issue to do. How about the weekly this week, Federico? What do we have in there?
In MacStories Weekly, also, we had a very nice collection of utilities and apps and shortcuts. So on the shortcut side, I shared a shortcut to quickly create a new inbox item in OmniFocus with a twist that, in addition to creating a new task in the OmniFocus inbox, the shortcut will also create a reminder for you to go in and clean up your inbox. Because I don't know about you, John, but I always end up adding tasks to my OmniFocus inbox and forgetting about them. So It's great that you can throw anything in the inbox, but it's equally important to go to the inbox later and actually take care of it and clean it up and take a task and say, okay, this needs to be filed into this project, or this needs to be due tomorrow. Whereas I always struggled, I save like 20 tasks in the inbox, and then I forget about them, and then eventually I realize, oh, I have 20 tasks in my inbox.
Right.
So this shortcut that I put together, it lets you save a task in the inbox, but it also creates a reminder for you due in 2 hours. But this time you can customize that. It's gonna pop up and say, hey, open your OmniFocus inbox and clean it up. And the nice thing is you can keep using this shortcut. And it's not like it will create 20 reminders for you to clean up the inbox. Every time you run it, it'll delete the previous reminder and it'll create a new one to replace it. So it allows you to always stay on top of your inbox. And the reminder will even have a note that says, at the moment that you ran this shortcut, you had 5 items in your inbox. So you can expand the reminder and even see more details. So it's a very nice system if you're like me and always struggle to keep track of the things that you save in OmniFocus inbox. You, John, also had a shortcut for Amazon stuff?
Yes, exactly. One of the things that I've been doing a lot since I've been kind of stuck in my home is I've been placing more and more Amazon orders for all kinds of just like really boring household things that we need. And what drives me crazy about the iOS app is that once you complete your order and you have the screen pop up that shows you what your order number is, it's the order number isn't text selectable. So you can't copy it and then drop it into an app like Deliveries to track your order. There's no share button even. You can't even share that page to Deliveries to track your order. So what I did is I created a shortcut. I take a screenshot of that page and then I OCR it and get it into Deliveries that way. And it's been really effective so far because the OCR support in iOS 13 is really good. The other thing that I did this week in Weekly is I did a collection of Mac utilities. I felt like since we were covering all iOS utilities on AppStories this week for the club, I wanted to run through a bunch of my Mac utilities that I use all the time. So this week I went through Daisy Disk, OCR Kit, Tabs to Links, AirBuddy, and Snap Motion, which are all great Mac apps.
Yeah, it's a very nice collection of apps. Especially OCR Kit is very impressive. I used it a few months ago, and to generate a complete archive of every Club MacStories newsletter and OCR every like 200 PDF documents. It's very, very impressive.
Yeah, the one other thing I'll mention from Weekly is that we had an interview this week with John Brayton, who is the developer of Unread, the RSS reader. So that was a really interesting read this week as well. If you're not a member of Club MacStories, you can check out everything we offer with the club. There's not just these newsletters, but a bunch of perks. Just go on over to club.macstories.net and check it out. All right, Federico, I think it's time for some picks. Why don't I let you get started with your first pick of Unwind?
All right. So my pick is a TV show. This is a TV show that we discovered, my girlfriend and I, like old people, not by watching Netflix or HBO or all these fancy modern services, but just by browsing around the iTunes store, as you know, most folks used to do 10 years ago probably. But I love the iTunes store. I don't know, call me old-fashioned. I still buy all my TV shows, John, like individual
All right.
episodes.
All right. I do that once in a while too, like when they have a big sale, but I don't do it. I don't think as
Yeah.
much as you do.
I always do because I want to watch TV shows when they come out in the US. But with streaming services, it's always a hassle with like regional restrictions, and you have
Sure.
to use a VPN. But you cannot use VPNs on your Apple TV. And yes, I know there are the solutions, but like custom DNS. But anyway, I prefer to buy TV shows. So we were browsing around and we discovered this TV show that I believe airs on NBC in the US. Maybe, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
It's called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Now, this show, you may take a look at the trailer and think, oh, this is like a modern version of Glee. And in a sense, it is like that. So it's a musical TV show with a unique twist. The main character, Zoe, she's a programmer at a San Francisco startup, a fictional startup. And due to a series of events in the first episode, she gains the power of hearing other people's inner thoughts. And the premise is sort of similar to What Women Want, the movie from 20 years ago. But there's a unique twist in that she can hear anyone's thoughts, but not actual thoughts. She can hear other people's thoughts as in the form of songs. And each song is performed by that person with a big musical number, usually. So there's like dance choreographies, or there's like, take a look at the trailer to get an idea. It's a very good show, not only because of the musical aspect, but because it's not a comedy necessarily. It also talks about some pretty mature and heavy themes like mental health and family struggles and diversity in the workplace. But there are also the comedic aspects of it, for sure. It's a very good TV show. If you like music, I cannot recommend this show enough. The covers are incredible. Dance choreographies are fantastic. My girlfriend tells me that the dance choreographer in charge of the show, she's legit, and she's very popular in the dance space. It's a very good show. We watched the 9 episodes of the first season. It's only one season so far, unfortunately, and it's wrapping up soon. I believe the final episode is airing in a couple of days. So now's a great time to catch up. But we basically ran through the entire season, and each episode is 1 hour long, by the way. So it's not like the standard sitcom format of 20 minutes. But in like a couple of days, we watched it.
Oh,
we
wow.
watched it all. And you can also go check out some of the musical numbers on YouTube, and there's also a playlist on Apple Music. So just search for Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist on YouTube and Apple Music, and you will get an idea. It's very, very good.
Okay, that sounds fantastic, and I know my wife has been enjoying that show too.
Oh, nice.
I have not, I have not watched it myself, but yeah, I definitely plan to set aside some time and take a look at it too. Federico, I want to mention a brand new live album that came out this week by Frank Turner. And
friend of the show, you might say.
Friend of the show, yes. So by friend of the show, we mean Friend of Dialogue, which is another podcast that we do that's seasonal, and we do in short spurts here and there. And we did a whole series on writers and writing. And Frank Turner is a singer-songwriter, and so we talked to him about songwriting. And I was a huge Frank Turner fan for a number of years before we interviewed him. So that was like a big thrill for me personally. And I think after that, I've only become a bigger fan because I read his book, Try This at Home, which is all about songwriting in preparation for that interview. And I got a much better feel for, I guess, him personally, because it's kind of a biography and about songwriting at the same time. So I got a better feel for what the songs were about and the lyrics. And what's really neat about this live show, it's called Live in Newcastle. It was recorded last November in Newcastle, England. And what's neat about it is that tour, which I saw about a month earlier when he came through Chicago, is that he does it in a much more low-key manner than some of his other shows that I've seen, where there's more acoustic instrumentation used, and there's a lot more storytelling in between songs, kind of explaining how different series of songs were recorded at different stages in his life and how they impacted him personally, and what were the influences on those songs. These are all songs I already know and I already love, but hearing the stories behind them, I enjoyed as well. And this just happened to come out the day that we were getting Unwind finalized and on the iTunes podcast app. And it was perfect because I just put it on in the background, listened to it a couple of times, and it gave me a nice little bit of entertainment on a otherwise very busy day.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right, Federico, I think that that's probably a great place to end our first episode of MacStories Unwind. Of course, check out the show notes because we're going to have links to all the stuff we talked about on MacStories, AppStories, and the club. And of course, you can always find Federico and me in all those places, as well as on social media. Federico is at Viticci on Twitter and Instagram. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.